Finally getting around to the rugby. We had Republic of Ireland at Wembley yesterday with Damien Delaney, of course, Katie Taylor in Texas. So rugby very much on the menu today, as ever. And they were, the good folk at Energia, they were in for a photo shoot earlier on. They are very much sponsoring our coverage of the Autumn Nations series here in Indo Sport. And to learn more about their partnerships and their exclusive home energy offers for rugby fans, you can, of course, visit energia.ie/rugby. You will have heard Sinead Caelan with Rory O'Connor and Keane Tracy on the whistle on Friday night already. And now for some more considered thoughts on Ireland 22, Argentina 19, and with a look ahead to Fiji on Saturday, we have the former Irish head coach Eddie O'Sullivan with us. Eddie, hello.
Joe, how are you doing?
I'm confused about how to feel on Friday. Felt very good at half time. Didn't know how to feel at full time.
Yeah. That dreaded cliche, the game of two halves. I hate using it, but hard to get away from that one. I just felt we were in a great place at half time. We did so much well. And we were lucky at the start. I think that breakaway try was called back. Maroney got the yellow card. I mean, that would have been that would have been the worst possible start for us. It was kind of weird as well. The game went on for about a minute. They got possession, they lost possession, we got possession, we lost possession. Maroney scores, was a bizarre kind of a bouncy try, and then we go all the way back. And it's yellow card. It was a yellow card, no question. It could have been borderline red. So we get out of jail on that. That would have been the worst possible start, because that would have lit Argentina. And we were just absolutely, I would say, flawless for a lot of it. I mean, took full advantage of the yellow card, scored 2 tries. We gave away a soft penalty with Henshaw, right? Okay, got him back a bit in the game, but then Ty Bourne was held up over the line. Then McCarthy struck again the 35th minute off a really good start to play. And then we had a great defensive set on our goal line. Come to half time, they're pounding our goal line. We get out and you go they've thrown everything with the kitchen sink at us here, and we have them under the cosh. So now, let's kick on. And with the second half, just a complete role reversal in many ways. But again, you'd have to say the discipline side of it again crept in. It was there in the first half a bit. We had, if you look at the first half, they still had 9 points from penalties and kept them in the game, and we had Beelam's yellow as well. And I'd have to say that the signs were there, but you're hoping, we get in control of it, but we didn't. The game slipped away, and we're awful lucky in the end. I just thought, had he made that drop goal that he missed in the 55th minute, Albornoz, if he'd hit that drop goal, it would have been a tie game. And there was a drop goal on at the end that would have beaten us. And, I think we dodged a bullet there, to be really. So that's the disappointing part of it. I'm sure it was interesting when the camera cut to the coach's box at the end. There was no celebrating, there was no handshakes, there was no smiles. I think they knew that they had lost the plot of it again, and they were lucky to get out of jail. So disappointing night, really, because you saw the potential of what they could deliver in the first half. Although I will say it was Argentina were a different team in the second half. Their defence in the first half was sloppy. They got caught. 2 of the tries got caught at pillar defender. Certainly, for the first one, the dummy maul for Crowley's try. The pillar dived in and we got a line break around the tail, and we were on the goal line, and a great try by Crowley. And then the third try, I think McCarthy's try again, the pillar, the number 5, he overshot the runway again, and James Lowe got in behind, and McCarthy finished. But that's very clinical by Ireland. They had done their homework. Argentina were sloppy at the pillar. They caught him twice. So there was so much good in the first half. I'd had to see it kind of just ebb away in the second. It was very frustrating to watch.
Yeah. What do you think in the coach's box they were saying to each other under their breath?
I suppose the big concern is that, overarching concern will be, is that over the last 2 weeks now, we failed really to control a game against New Zealand, where I still think New Zealand were vulnerable 2 weeks ago. They weren't brilliant. They just kicked their way to victory. Very conservative game plan. Had we really hit the straps, I think we might have got them. For more than I think we would have got them. Now, they were a different team in Paris, so we're not comparing like with like. But that New Zealand team we faced in Dublin was kind of below par, I thought, and we were further below par. So that's a worry. But I think the bigger worry now is, I suppose, you're in control of a game. You have a game by the scruff of the neck for 40 minutes, and then you find yourself under the cosh for the second half. So how do you lose control of the game? Where does that where do things spin away from you, and you're now struggling to close out a game? And even at the very end, the yellow card that was really like the Gomez Codella yellow card was insane, because the ruck was won and he goes in and takes somebody out with a shoulder, and genuinely yellow card. We kick it into the corner. No, it's a 3-point game. We should kill the game there. We should just kill it. And we go through 19 phases and we get turned over, and you go, I've been around the game a lot. Like, a team always, if you don't put a team away, they always get a shot. And Argentina got the shot. They got the penalty turnover, counter ruck. They took us through 20 phases, and then they knocked it on. We were lucky. So again, I worry that we were in the kill zone and we didn't kill them off. Even with everything else that went wrong in the second half. But I suppose the one thing that's going to rankle with them is, how do you lose control of a game? And at the end of the day, the biggest bugbear for Ireland must be now is that discipline is still a major problem. McCarthy's yellow card, which was an offside, was because it was persistent penalties, and the ref said, enough's enough here, lads, you've got to go. So I know the penalty count is 13-3, which is another black mark, but you can be sure you're going to give up penalties in every game. There's going to be guys trapped at the bottom of a rock. They can't get out straight. It's a penalty. Yeah. There's someone going to be a couple of feet offside, or you're going to pick up penalties. But the benchmark we've always had, well, as long as I've been around, when we started counting penalties, is that if you stay in single figures, like below 10, you'll be okay. If you get down to low single figures, like 5 or 6, you'll be great. But once you creep into double figures, that's where the problems arise. And people say, oh, yeah, I know it's 3 points here, 3 points there. It's not just even the 3 points. Sometimes you're leaving teams out of jail.
Yeah.
You have them in their 22 and you give away a penalty, you give them a soft exit, or you give away a penalty in the halfway line, and then you're on the back foot. They punt it into the corner, and now you have to go through, 15, 20 more ruck set of defence of, making tackles and hoping you don't get up another penalty. So the discipline thing, it takes the ball away from you, puts you under pressure, kills your field position. And that's how you lose control of a game. You lose field position, you lose possession, and you're on thin ice then with the referee. Another couple of days and you're down to 14. And we basically played Argentina with 14 men for 20 minutes. No, they did the same, which kind of evened out. But it's not really a smart place to be. You can't afford 2 yellow cards a game. They were both very careless yellow cards. One was the croc roll. Just careless. And then they knew we were on a warning, and McCarthy never got onside. He got up from the tackle and went back and stayed offside. Like, if that was a rookie error,
Yeah.
So I think the one thing they're going to have to do is find a way of getting our penalty counts down, because once it goes over a certain level, you do lose control of the game. It's out of your hands. The other team have the ball. They have field position. And I think that's probably the thing that's bugged them the most, is that otherwise they're going to struggling games. And then what happens is you get this kind of malaise creeps in, here we go again. If we give up 2 or 3 penalties and we're on our goal line. And I'm not saying Argentina are a bad team, but I think, they had opportunities to beat us and they didn't take them. So they will, I know Contapoma will be kicking himself, but their indiscipline as well was probably, not far off ours, even though they didn't get penalised as much, but they had big moments. But having said that, if you're looking from the Irish perspective, this ill discipline has got to be figured out. Yeah. And it's a tough one, but it is a genuine issue now going forward for us.
It has now entered into the realm of trend as opposed to one-off or a bad couple of games.
And you're right. You can have a one-off, a bad day, the referee, I'm not saying the referee, but this is a trend. That's 100% way to put it. This is how we are now trending.
Because there was that great run when they were winning all around them. In 30 games, they had 3 yellow cards in 30 games. So on average, 1 in 10. Whereas you take their last 10 games, they're knocking out a yellow card per game. Obviously 2 on Friday, 26 penalties in 2 games. So just more so for the listener, because I suspect you have them all to hand and in your head, but just to quick reminder of these 13 penalties. I don't know what feed you were watching stateside, but in the interview with Tommy Martin on Virgin, Andy Farrell, when he was talking about the game, he brought up the discipline and he called it desperate. That was the word he used for it. So he was suitably peeved. So like, it's they just add up. Like a lot of them just kind of, can happen or are semi-defendable. First one, Robbie Henshaw's a little bit offside in defence, gets pinged. Second one is the croc roll from Finlay Bealham, you mentioned. That's a yellow. Yeah. The third one, again, maybe like it's confusion over in attack a little bit because Kelleher and McCarthy take the same running line, not intending to, and so Kelleher is done for obstructing the tackler. Yeah. Then Doris gets done 2 in a row in quick succession for offside. The second one seems very harsh, but he's done. And then there's one at line out. Again, can kind of happen. You've come across the line. And then that's the warning just before half time where the ref says, okay, that's a few now in the last couple of minutes. So tidy that up. Then we're into this. So that's 6 in the first half. Again, not ideal, but, kind of not horrific. 7th penalty, start of second half. Again, this is a bit unlucky. The referee called the tackle because Argentinian knee hit the ground. Players didn't hear him, so they never released. They were going for a turnover. Yeah. They get done. The 8th penalty was an interesting one in that the escort lines are supposed to be police now. James Lowe felt somebody was in front of him, so he pushes him out of the way, and the ref says, well, no, he wasn't in your way. So another penalty. Definitely the McCarthy offside as penalty number 9 is frustrating because he never gets back on side in the first place. It's not even eagerness to get off the line. You could probably argue it's like get back into line, Yeah. Then the 10th one, Jack Crowley tackles player in the air. Like, God, Jack, don't. Porter gets done at scrum. That can happen. And then 12 and 13, in both cases, Osborne it's at the breakdown. And the 12th one, it's a great Osborne break and nobody gets there in time to help him. 13 is, again, fight at the breakdown. Lots of bodies. Ireland lose. Which of those on the Monday are you kind of saying, fellas, bang, 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 those 3, 4, 5, unforgivable, can't happen? Or in each one, do you kind of say, oh, look, that's kind of baked in. That's just what happens?
No, absolutely not. I mean, I think the ones you went through there, there's probably half of them are baked in. One of the scrum, one of the rock, they all happen. And you accept they're going to get pinged 5 or 6 times because you can do nothing about it. It just happens. But the offside ones are criminal. Okay. Taking a guy out in the air, criminal. James Lowe pushing a player in front of him, needlessly, criminal. Like the croc roll, criminal. McCarthy offside, criminal. Okay. Like these are all completely avoidable. Now you take like you said there at half time, six penalties, not so bad. Actually, if I had 6 penalties at half time, the alarm bells would be ringing because multiply by 2. Now you're into double figures. Sure. Just do the math. So there's half those that are completely avoidable on an average day. You'll be given out to a club side for that stuff. And you take those out of the equation. I think we kick on and went pretty comfortably because we get field position. And the great thing in the first half, I thought, is our attack was beautiful. It was actually working very well. And we can talk about Crowley later on the whole fly half thing, but he really was pulling the strings beautifully. We were on the front foot. We were getting width on our game. It was just going so well. But you suck all the energy out of that with these needless, silly penalties, and you give the other side a lifeline. You throw a lifeline to the opposite side. Well, like, lads, let's make this a competition. And I think that's so, for the coaches, that is the stuff that keeps you awake at night. Because, like, it's completely unnecessary and needless, those penalties. And you could see that once, like Ireland, you could see the energy draining out of them in the second half. Once we got into the second yellow card and everything. And you have these moments, here come Argentina. Because these guys are famous for sticking around. They are incredibly gritty and tough as a team. They've always been dogged and they never give up and they fight for every blade of grass and they'll hang in there till the very end. And that's exactly what we saw. But we invited them into the parlour to do it.
Is the very optimistic conclusion, though, that's a fairly easy problem to fix. I mean, you sort that out, you probably win the game comfortably. Like it's a good problem to have versus our attack isn't working at all.
One would think it's an easy problem to solve.
Right.
And at the same time, it's amazing how when pressure comes on, guys, you get these mental errors.
Okay.
that they shouldn't make it that level.
And that they weren't making necessarily, you know, Joe McCarthy may be a bit of a problem with discipline, but like you wouldn't say a lot of those other guys are penalty machines necessarily. Robbie Henshaw rarely.
You pointed out our record has been extraordinary. You know, our record has been outstanding. But if you, as I said to you, there was 6 of those that were run-of-the-mill stuff. You can't do anything about it. But the other 7, I guarantee you, were avoidable. And you take those 7 off the table, it's a different game. We've more possession, we've more access to the Argentinian third of the field, and I guarantee you we score more tries. And the game is done and dusted.
Yeah. Does it speak of the team?
It's a self-inflicted wound, you know.
Does it speak of the environment of the team in any way? With teams you've had in the past that had high penalty counts?
Well, I know my time when I took over Ireland, we had a dreadful reputation for we're famous for being spoilers, like offside, killing the ball. And we it took us 2 or 3 seasons before referees started to look at us as constructive. And we try to keep that all the time. And we would go through every penalty in the game after game. We would break it down as to how that happened. And we would got it down. I think one game we got down to 3 penalties, you know. And then you get a good reputation. And Ireland were there. That's the stupid part about it, the frustrating part. I mean, they obviously have done this work. It's not like it's been neglected, but somehow in the last while they've slipped off it, and it's hard to put your finger on it. It's a nebulous thing. Like, I mean, why did Joe McCarthy not go back on side? Like, it's a schoolboy error, knowing that we're on a warning, and he doesn't. So, you know, I'm not sure. I don't think the culture of the team is bad at all. I think it's an excellent culture.
I couldn't sense that.
It doesn't make any sense.
No.
It's one of those ones that's a head scratcher.
Yeah.
But there's no doubt about it that until we clean that up, Joe, we're going to struggle to put teams away, and probably cost us some games. You know, I think it cost us the New Zealand game, to be honest, at the end of the day.
So juxtapose 3 first half tries, and by the way, if Tadhg Beirne had managed to ground that 4th try, I mean that's a hell of a try as well. Yeah. Versus like a sense in the second half of we're not going to score here. Like there was a 15-16 phase period in the Argentinian 22, followed by that 18-19 phases, and on another occasion that you mentioned as well, like a sense of Argentina, even though we're sort of hanging out in their 22 or in their half, a lot of ball in hand, they're looking pretty comfortable. How do you figure, what does that say about our attack first and second half?
Yeah, I think there's a shift there that changed things, and that was the shift came actually from Argentina. I thought they were much better in the second half.
Okay.
I think in the first half, there would have been a fair bit of I say, of the word verbalic and dished out and the change room at half time, because their defence was very poor in the first half. They got caught at pillar a couple of times, cost them 2 tries. So I think they would have been, they had to tighten up the defence, which they did. So suddenly they were getting off the line. They were holding their shape better. We again came back a little bit off what we were doing, like going out the back on us. So we'd be smart. We were carrying well up the guts, or we were mixing it up and going out the back to Jack Crowley, and we're hitting good hard lines outside him. So we're moving the strike point really well, and we were moving Argentina around, and we're getting in behind him. And the second half, Argentina defended a lot smarter. They got numbers around the corner, they got off the line, and they put us under more pressure. So that breaking them down became harder, and that would have been what Contepomino wanted at half time. We need to fix our defence here, or it's going to get away from us. So they did that bit properly. The other thing they did well, actually, Argentina, is they attacked the fringe of the outside channels a lot more from the off. The second half, they had a very good start to the second half. They went wide on us. Now, they weren't breaking us down and scoring tries, but they were eking out 15, 20 metres and stretching our defence. And that's where their try came. They stretched us. And the full-back who scored hit a beautiful line. I can't give his name off the top of my head, but I have my notes here. Hit a peach of a line, and brilliant finish. I mean, just outstanding.
Mali,
that's what they do. That's what they do. You know, Mali, that's what they do. They get a half break and they skin you. But it's hard to believe that there was there was no score in the last 30 minutes of the game.
No,
that was the last score was the 50th minute, and the try came in the 44th, and then there was a penalty on the 50th, and you think, you know, there's going to be more scores. So there's 30 minutes, there's no score. Hard to believe.
It's hard.
But I have to say, Argentina. Yeah. My point, sorry, Joe. Argentina were much better in the second half defensively.
So would you say,
and attack-wise, they asked more questions?
Yeah. So The worrying interpretation of what you said there is that Ireland scored their tries when Argentina were not defending well, but actually when Argentina put up a fairly resolute defence, that's kind of 50 minutes where Ireland could not score a point, and there was a fairly lengthy 38, 39 minutes where Ireland didn't score a point also against New Zealand. So, I mean, you add those two together, it's hard to say Ireland's attack is in razor sharp nick.
Well, I think you'd have to put on top of that a factor is that we took away a lot of our attack with our indiscipline. We didn't have the ball as much as we should have by giving away penalties. And we found ourselves in parts of the field when we did have the ball that it's very hard to attack from. Your defensive third makes sense to exit there, not muck around. So we put ourselves in a place where we had less opportunities to attack. But I would say that probably the worrying thing in the end was that yellow card that Argentina picked up, Gomez, Codella, we should have gone down there and killed the game. They had 14 men.
Yeah.
There was like 4 or 5 minutes on the clock. We put into the corner, went through, I think, was it 19 phases, and we got counter-rucks and turned over. But I think at that stage we were nervous that we knew this is a one-score game. We knew that like this could be for the whole bag of chips here, and it nearly was. But that nervousness, suddenly we start pulling the trigger and the balls out the back and stuff. We go into more one-off runner stuff, which is easier to defend. So there's a little nervousness creeps in it, which is understandable when it's a one-score game. And unfortunately, we did turn over the ball, and fortunately, it didn't cost us the game because Argentina went effectively. I think they got that first possession from the turnover on their own 10-meter line, and they took us up to the 5-meter line. There was 22 phases, and it was on for about 2.5 minutes. And had the first drop goal gone through, the drop goal was there to win the game.
Yeah.
So that was in the back of my head. It was an opportunity missed, I would say, for them. But I would think there's a number of factors in there. I think our attack, didn't less opportunities in the first half than in the first half because we were out of position. And secondly, we got tight in the end, and we, that free flowing stuff we saw in the first 20, and I don't think Prendergast coming on affected that really. To be honest with you, I think he looked good going to the line a few times. I thought he was impressive.
There's been ongoing concern about lack of depth with the prop positions in particular. So no Furlong, Beelum goes off. How did Tom Clarkson look on his debut?
I think he did fine, but the way the game played out, he had a couple of scrums, but he held his own fine. One I don't think Argentina went after us for some reason. I thought they would, but they didn't. A lot of scrums teams just go in and they look at the field position, what's the value in going after a team, because there's a risk in attacking in the scrum. If you attack in the scrum, you can get penalised for attacking. And it's still a crapshoot as to who's boring in and who went down.
Yeah.
The scrum is like roll the dice here and see what happens. So if you're going to attack a scrum, you can just get penalised. So I think teams pick their moment. So I don't think there was any moment where, like, had there been, for example, a scrum on our goal line with a minute to go, I think they would have gone after Clarkson for sure. Okay. But he never got into that. But I'm not taking away from him. I tell you, he did really well.
Sure.
I mean, on the basis of what we saw, he did what he was supposed to do. He held up his hands, no problem there. But it's interesting you say that the two areas of Ireland where the big weaknesses at the moment are, I think, is that prop. When you look at the depth chart, Healy, Porter, that's really it at the moment. And then at tight head, you've got, obviously Furlong's out, you've Tom O'Toole, Beelum, we're not as bad there, but suddenly, a couple of injuries and you're down to Clarkson with one cap. So, and the other one that nobody talks about is fullback. Who's the Irish fullback? Keenan's been lording it, and rightly so. He's a phenomenal player. I really like the guy. He's a fantastic fullback. He does everything well. He doesn't make mistakes. He's full of guts. Punches above his weight. But who's next man up if anything happens to him?
Well, I presume it's Jamie Osborne off the back of South Africa.
Well, yeah, but I mean, the point is that you don't know for sure. Like, Jamie Osborne has played there, but there's a big difference between filling in and being the guy. So, like, I think Jamie Osborne is the next man up, but it's unproven. Wouldn't it be something again? But Osborne to full back.
Yeah.
And he could do that.
Yeah.
But that would be the real test. If he really thinks Osborne is the next man up, throw him in against Fiji. He'll surely figure out against Fiji, because that's a tough day at the opposite full back, because these guys can run from anywhere. and they have a decent kicking game. So that's unproven, is my point. And if that happened to Jamie Osborne, where are you?
Well, that's true.
You need to go 3 down the depth chart in most positions just because.
That's true. Well, thankfully, I guess Hugo Keenan is freakishly good injury profile, so maybe he'll stick it out for the foreseeable. Can I ask you, before we get into that whole 10s debate, by the way, which Irish players, aside from 10, which Irish players would you say are going well? Who's looking good?
Well, Doris, again, looks a class act all the time. I think he's definitely a contender for the Lions captaincy. I think Ty Bourne is playing great rugby. I think Porter's playing very well. I think the back row is always very strong. Van der Fleer is an incredible workhorse, phenomenal work rate. I think Gibson Park is outstanding again, pulling the strings. I thought Crowley came back to himself again. Thought the back line outside of that are just, plugging away, but they're the guys that stand out to me, are the guys who are like driving force in the team at the moment,
I've heard, I don't know.
McCarthy is an enforcer, but he comes with risks,
I've heard it said of the team a little bit lately that we kind of lack a bit of X factor. Who are these guys got an amazing strike run or going to magic something up out of nothing when maybe the kind of very sophisticated, multifaceted attack isn't quite working. Do we lack a little bit of X factor when teams are sizing us up?
Yeah, I think our talent is spread across the team. There's no Brian O'Driscoll's, Paul O'Connell's type of standout guys. Doris is probably the one.
Okay.
But again, in terms of X factor, I'm not sure. Like, you'd like to have it, but it's not. It doesn't mean you can't function without it.
Yeah.
I just think that at the moment it's a very talented team across the board, and if everybody gets on the field fit and healthy, and you pick your best 15, it's a world class team, no question about it. And then it comes down to the performance on the day of deliver. But there's not a team in the world, if we're fully loaded and we're in the zone, there's not a team in the world we wouldn't face.
Yeah.
And I don't think we could ever say that in our history. Like we've never had this, and it's down to a number of things. One is the team is very well organised, very well coached. There's a lot of talent there, and success breeds success. Like playing the All Blacks and beating them so much in recent years. Like, I think the old one for me on the All Blacks, for example, was such a hard nut to crack for us. But we played the All Blacks more in the last 20 years than we did in the previous 120 years. We're just playing them more often. That's how Australia used to beat them every so often. They played them almost twice a year. And once you get the first one, you go, well, the myth is broken. So, but we are a very good team at the moment, a world-class team. I don't care who we play. I've played the Springboks tomorrow. They're the top team in the world. I think that, there's no arguing about that. But I would go toe-to-toe with them tomorrow with this Irish team, and I think we've a good chance of taking them out,
Yeah.
So we're in a great place. But you're right, there isn't anybody with that. The Brian O'Driscoll factor, let's say, that's someone who can magic something out of nothing. But you don't necessarily need that, when everybody else is firing on cylinders, it's a cracking team.
Yeah. It's funny because you listen to the tone, and sorry, very much a part of it over here, and even on the TV coverage afterwards, what I was doing, it's almost like a bit of a post-mortem. And like, we've just beaten the fifth best team in the world, and okay, not in great form, but there is a part of me that kind of drives home afterwards and thinks, God, you're just moaning. You know what I mean? Like, this team is really good. A lot's in good nick, true. And we're just moaning the whole time about this very good team.
It's the trouble with success, Joe. It brings expectation. Like, the more successful you are, the greater the expectation is that every time you go out, you're going to blow the doors off.
Yeah.
And when you don't, then everyone's going, it's not what it should be. There was a time, we lost to New Zealand. What was the score? Was it a 10-point spread in the end, was it? And there's a time we'd have celebrated losing to New Zealand by 10 points. It's not that long ago, So we're now we're at the top table now, and we expect Michelin star joining every week, and we don't get it. We're not too happy about it. But I think that's just the nature of sport, We are in a great place. Let's not forget. It's a great point. Let's not forget where we are in Irish rugby. It's never been as good ever, and we have an incredible team, incredible talent, and we're firing on all cylinders most of the time. So when we're a little bit off, everyone starts, saying, well, we expect better, and we do expect better. But is the issue about having success? Is success breeds expectation? Expectation doesn't give any room for falling below the bar. And we have fallen below the bar for 2 weeks now. Let's be honest, and that has to be fixed. It can't become a trend, as you say,
So Crowley had a week of people talking about the 10 position, and he, the way they obviously with the cameras of the players getting off the bus, and he would have been conscious the cameras on him. He came in laughing with somebody, sharing a joke, and I sort of thought, God, is that the lady protesting too much here a little bit? How relaxed can he be?
Yeah.
I have to say, I was really kind of thrilled for him, because it can't be easy. He's a young man trying to make his way off the back of Sexton, which is not easy. And I would have said for the vast majority of his 60 minutes on the pitch, he let everybody know he's made of the right stuff psychologically.
Yeah, I think he had a super game. I think the fact that he scored the first try, he had the moxie to tuck the ball and have a crack that close out and finish it, shows to me that he backs himself. And if you don't back yourself as a 10, you'll never make it. You've got to have that edge of arrogance about you, and it's not a bad thing. It's not a bad arrogance. It's just that I'm the guy for this job, and I'm going to grab by the scruff and I can do it. And I thought he was outstanding. He did that. I think coming off a bad performance against such a big game and so much talk around him, and then the two other like Crowley in the mix and Prendergast bounces on the scene, he had to make a statement. So in that alone, he was under huge pressure. I mean, had he gone out on Friday night and slipped below the bar again in terms of another bad performance, suddenly his position would be at risk. So he was under terrible pressure, and to deliver, it's all very fine to deliver a great performance when things are going well. It's the capacity to pull out that performance when you're under the cosh, and he was under the cosh, whether you like it or not, and he did it. So I was delighted for him. I thought he did a great job, and he looked like back to himself again. So I think he's grabbed the shirt again. I think he's the number one again, Now that could change, but at this moment in time, I think he's put down a marker to Andy Farrell and said, "I'm your man." And I don't think Farrell would disagree with that.
Every time
Which makes it a very interesting selection this weekend,
Well, it does, yeah. And poor old Frawley with the camera cutting to him every 5 seconds as well. Farrell, every time he's asked about Prendergast, is effusive. So of his 18 minutes on Friday, he said, "I thought Sam was excellent, really composed, played at a nice tempo at the line, started to make things happen." So Prendergast then.
Yeah, I think the selection this weekend will be very telling at 10. And the reason I said that is if he goes for Prendergast this weekend, in his head he's saying, okay, Crowley's 1 and Prendergast 2 and Frawley's now 3 in his head. Now, Prendergast goes out and doesn't go for him, then maybe Frawley gets an in. But if he picks Prendergast, it's more or less saying, I think he's my number 2, and I'm just going to double down on him. And Kieran Frawley has slipped to 3. Now, if he picks Frawley, it's a different conversation. He's going to Frawley, okay, you had a bad night off the bench. That happens. I still got your back here, but you need to prove it. So go out against Fiji and make a statement. And I think that's why I would read those selections. If Frawley starts, it's your chance. Like Jack took his chance last week, you need to take it this week. But if he goes straight to Prendergast, I think that's bad news for Frawley. He might end up on the bench, but I think if Prendergast starts ahead of Frawley this weekend, it's probably Andy Farrell sitting in my head. Prendergast is 2, unless he fluffs his lines. But that'll be his thinking at this moment. Now, this all changes. It's a movable feast. But that's where he will be in my reading, depending on. So I watched that selection closely as to where the boys are standing at the moment.
Like, it is just an 18-minute cameo, and everything seems to carry such weight at the moment in that number 10 dynamic. Like with Prendergast.
Well, credit, Joe. Sorry,
go on.
Sorry for cutting you off there. Credit to Andy Farrell for putting Prendergast on the bench after a poor performance. And then credit to him when the game was really in the hopper still, he put him on the team, on the field. Like, I would say that, that's strong coaching on Andy Farrell's part. It was a risk to put Prendergast in his first cap in a game that was still in the hopper, and he came through. But to me it was a brave selection and a brave substitution, and credit to Farrell for that. And credit to Prendergast didn't let him down either.
Yeah, like there are aspects to Prendergast's game which are far from developed. Like by all accounts, any judge, and you can see it, he doesn't love tackling. So his defence is one. Ewan Keane talked about his game management against the Lions in the rain in the second half at the Aviva a couple of weeks ago. So these things are all there. But there is no doubt, even like the casually trained eye looking at him on the pitch, there's no doubt when he's out there, he seems to have time on the ball and he seems to take it to the line at his own pace and he's in control of the dynamic. Some lesser 10s, defender charging at them is in control of the situation. Yeah. Whereas he takes it to the line, he says, I'm pulling the trigger when I'm ready. I can see who's outside me, bang, gone. And that's such a promising quality. That's why they're all so excited about this guy.
There's two parts to his game, Joel, I think makes him stand out. Now, he's work in progress. I'm not saying he's the best fly half in Ireland, but it's hard to see him not becoming the man in the next few years because what I see at the moment. Now, he's always going to be compromised physically, and that's going to be a problem. Teams are going to run at him because, you get someone who's 20, 10 kilos heavier than him. The least he can do is try and hold him up. But let's park that for the moment. As an attacker, he's got two parts to his game, which I think are world class. One is, and this is a really, you kind of touched on it there. When he takes the ball to the line, he squares up beautifully before he makes the pass. Not many. It's such a small thing in terms of, you say, oh, it doesn't mean that much. It means a ton. When he squares up and delays that pass, it causes massive problems. It's only I guess people watch, and you've touched on it because you've noticed how he goes to the line. But the key to that is he squares his shoulders and he holds the ball an extra fraction. And not many out halves can do that. I mean, I'm telling you, like, not many guys can do it. They all go through the motions, they all make the passes, but he squares his shoulders, holds it for half a second, and he freezes the defense. And then the picture appears, and then he pulls the trigger. And that, to me, is world class. Like, there's not too many 10s in the world doing that. That's a standalone thing that he has. Wherever it came from, wherever he picked it up, wherever he learned it, he has it. And the second thing, he's got vision. And you see that at times where he passes or where he even kicks. He's got a big picture view. So I think they're the two parts of his game that makes him world-class 10. Now, there's other parts of his game you pointed out, are going to be problematic. He's never going to weigh 100 kilos. He's always going to be a target on defense. But he's brave. And you can work around that. But I think they're the two things for me that make him a standout. Now, he's still work in progress. But I have to say, his vision and his capacity to go to the line, square his shoulders, and hesitate for a second before he pulls the trigger. And then the picture appears and he makes the right decision most of the time. And I've seen that since he played under 20s. It's something he's carried through from schools, I guess. And that, to me, makes him a special talent. And he may be the X Factor guy down the track that you're looking for.
Okay, well, that's no pressure, kid.
No. But like you're only saying what you see, and I think it's fantastic, yeah. But he's got a job to do. I mean, he's still got to wrestle the 10 shot away from Crowley. And if Crowley gets the nod this weekend and lights it up, then it's still a steeper hill. But in the long term, he's only, 21 now? 20,
yeah, 21. And I presume you kind of came in at the tail end of Humphreys O'Gara, but then, for the bulk of your tenure, O'Gara was just the undisputed. So I presume with a position like 10, you want that, don't you? You want an undisputed 10. Everybody knows he's starting. He's the alpha. It's not a continual conversation.
Well, it's worked for Ireland, worked with us with O'Gara, and it certainly worked afterwards with Johnny Sexton was the man. And everyone knew, it's like the great analogy again is, I'm an American sports fan, but who's your quarterback? Yeah. Who's your team leader? Who's the guy that's going to pull the strings under pressure and steer the team through, good days and bad days? And that's what you want, is you want a key player in a key position that does that. And every coach wants that going forward. You want a good, solid backup, but you don't want to get into a situation where you're rotating players through in a key position. Like, he's one guy in for one game, another game for another. And I went through that probably a bit with O'Gara and with Humphreys, because David was coming near the end of his career. He was still a fantastic out half, great experience, but Ronan was coming to learning his trade. So there's those transitions, but at some point you need to pull the trigger and say, this is the guy. And that worked well with Ronan, certainly worked well with Johnny Sexton. And I think that's what Andy Farrell will be looking for, is who's my guy, going for the next, into the next World Cup. So that is definitely part of the plan, no doubt about it. Okay.
Well, we'll watch the Fiji selection with interest. Before you go, so this November series, Southern Hemisphere have won 7 games out of 9. Ireland beat Argentina and France beat New Zealand. Just briefly, so Wales 20, Australia 52. This is like full-on crisis now at this stage. This is their worst run of results in their 143 years of international rugby, 11 defeats in a row. Like you take the turnaround from the World Cup last year when Wales beat Australia 40 points to 6. They took the wooden spoon in the Six Nations subsequent to that. Gatland has 6 wins in 23 tests. You know, it's like all-out war over there. The former WRU chief exec is saying he has to go. Mike Phillips saying he has to go. Tom Shanklin says, well, if he doesn't win a game this year, he has to go. Gwyn Jones says Gatland's already checking out. What's happened here? Like, are the players that bad?
Probably, yeah, to be fair to Warren,
Okay.
I think that great Welsh team, a lot of them held on too long. Like guys were in, 80, 90, 100, 120 caps. That's always a danger and doing the business. I think Welsh rugby is in crisis. When's the last time a Welsh team, really won the URC? I think when Letley was the last time that did it with Wayne Pivac. They haven't been delivering at club level. The game is a bit of crisis on the ground.
They were able to rise above that for the guts of the last 20 years is the interesting thing. People said,
yeah, but they just had very good players, Joe. Like I mean, I remember talking to Warren way back, and he took over the first time, and he couldn't believe how good that team was. He said it to me. Thought they were not. He was really shocked at how talented they were. And I don't think the pipeline system in Wales is working. Like Wales have been pretty awful in the under-20s for a number of years. Like all the cracks are there in the system. And I looked at the Welsh team last weekend and I didn't recognise any of them really.
Yeah.
Now I'm not following Welsh rugby closely, so it's not a big admission. But I did. There was no real household names there. A lot of young fellas, and like Test rugby is brutal. And I think the other thing as well is Australia were very poor in the World Cup. I think Joe Schmidt has re-energised them. It's taken a little bit of time. They've had their ups and downs. I mean, they got whipped by Argentina in the rugby championship, but they bounced back and they're playing, a type of rugby that suits Australia, which is kind of run and gun game. A friend of mine in Australia always says the Australian public don't always worry about Australia winning. It's how they're playing. Are they really having a crack, as I say? And this team now is having a crack, which makes them dangerous coming to Dublin. But I think Wales they met Wales at the wrong time. But I'm not sure there's a quick solution for Wales. Where's it going to come from? They don't have the players, they don't have the structure, they're in debt. Their club game is very poor, their pipelines are poor. This is chickens coming home to roost after like maybe 15 years of being in a great place, which always can happen because your biggest weakness when things are going well is you forget about the future and things slide on, and then suddenly you go off a cliff. And Wales have gone off a cliff in that respect. I know Warren Gatland's getting an awful kicking as the coach does when things go pear-shaped. And he has to take some responsibility because his penchant sometimes is to put young guys in. He's always taking those risks as a coach. That's his MO. And when it works, it's great. But when it doesn't, there's a price for it. And I think that Welsh team at the moment, they look like a schoolboy team, half of them, and they've very little experience. So they're very exposed, Wales, at the moment. It's not good for Six Nations rugby.
No, it's not.
That Wales is in a slump, it's not good at all.
England were beaten by 9 by South Africa, so that's 5 in a row. Admittedly, New Zealand, Australia, South Africa in there. The consensus is like some decent stuff in there, but really bad mistakes. What kind of shape are they in? They'll be Ireland's first Six Nations opponents next year. Where's Borthwick here?
Which team is this, Joe?
England.
Which team? Oh, England. Yeah, England to me look like a team that can always beat you. They're not far off, but their big problem is their defence is an absolute disaster. Like they're just giving up points for free. You can't do it at Test level. I mean, if Borthwick could fix the defence, I think things turn around for them because they have talent. They have Marcus Smith, who was the X Factor kid. They respond to him. They have a lot of stuff going for them with the ball, but defensively they've just been a catastrophe. And until Borthwick fixes that, they're going to be beaten in tests that they could win and should win. And that's pretty damning, really. Its job is to make sure that doesn't happen. Consistency, I've always defined it as winning the games you're supposed to win and winning some of the games you're not supposed to win. But when you start losing games you're supposed to win, you're in trouble.
Yeah.
And, that's happened to them. I mean, they had Australia salted. and defensively they screwed up again and let Australia out of jail. And that's re-energised Australia. That win in Twickenham has been a massive lift to Australia. But it was down to poor defence at the end of the day. I mean, I got a bit of stick on Twitter because Marcus Smith came up and in on that final tackle and didn't stop the football. And then there's a try. He stays out and makes his tackle. Argentina or Australia to go through another maybe 10 phases to get a shot. So it's been defensive flaws, which as a head coach, that's Borthwick's responsibility. He needs to fix that and fix it quick. Now, if he does that, England are back in the hunt. I know they're not perfect, but they're back in the hunt. Yeah. I'd still think they're a tough nut to crack in Twickenham in a Six Nations game. That's like whether you like it or not,
We found that out this year. The haka in Paris was amazing. If people didn't see it, this whole thing was just a spectacle from start to finish. And you sort of felt there was only going to be a point in it at the end, and so it proved. France 30, New Zealand 29. Amazing game. French World Cup hangover abating. They're coming back with a bang in 2025, would you say, or how impressive?
Yeah, they're not far away. They're in again. The Six Nations are going to go for it. They're always kind of vulnerable after Six Nations mentally, after World Cup mentally. That Six Nations after World Cup, France are always a bit vulnerable because they had such an anticlimactic World Cup. That was their World Cup to win, and they went out and they were just gutted. So they were always going to have hard to lift for the Six Nations. They go back to their clubs. The clubs want their pound of flesh. They're back into the top cat rows. And, the French team drifts into the ether a bit. But they're back. And I think Galtier is rebuilding. He's looking at options. I was interested that he's put Ramos at 10 and Jalabert left camp bailed. So he's not on any of this. And the more interesting response was from Galtier. Well, okay, that's right. He can come back if he wants. There's no problem. Like, can you imagine if an hour and a half stormed out of Irish camp or something?
Oh, there'd be documentaries about it.
Well, it'd be, hell would freeze over before you get back to camp. But it's typical French. And you could see, but it's an interesting selection, Ramos going to 10. I thought it was a strange one, actually, because I do think Jalabert is a very good 10. And Ramos is a world-class fullback, but it's typical French. But yeah, they're on the way back. France are on the round again, and they have some genuine talent. And, they're always going to be a threat. Again, World Cups are about timing, so let's see where that brings them. But in the meantime, they're going to be a handful.
Okay. Final point, the World Player of the Year nominations announced. So Erin King of Ireland was nominated for Breakthrough Women's Player. I think, to be fair, Jamie Osborne's up against it with Sasha Feinberg, Mungum Zelu, Wallace Satiti and Faye Boso, but he got a nomination. And then of the 4 players for World Player of the Year, 3 South Africans, no surprise, Etzebeth, Steph du Toit, Cheslin Colby and Caelan Doris gets in there. Somehow suspect it's going to be a South African who gets the nod, Eddie?
Probably, but I think Doris is right in there with a shot,
Do you? Yeah,
okay. I do believe, I think he's a world-class player. I think he's potentially, I agree with, there's been rumours that he's potentially Lions captain's material. I think he is Lions captain material, no doubt about it. He's just such a complete player. His game, he has one little penchant. Again, he is part of the discipline problem. He does give away penalties.
Yeah.
And some of them, I remember probably his most egregious penalty this year was, I think correct me if I'm wrong here, I don't want to do the guy a bad turn, but he gave away a very soft penalty in the Champions Cup.
No, final. He did. A crucial moment, he did, yeah.
And that was like a moment of madness. Yeah. But apart from that, I do think he's an extraordinary talent. I mean, he's physical, he's got great feet, he's got great hands, he's a great target. I mean, there's no part of his game that he's not on top of, He's a liner option and he's as tough as hell. So yeah, he's in there. But I think if he gets it, he deserves it. Although it's 3-1 against it and goes to South Africa. But at the same time, the fact that he's right in there. I mean, and all these things are subjective anyway. Who is the best player? But he's definitely one of the top players in the world at the moment.
No, he sure is. It's strange in all sports, but in rugby in particular. How do you compare Cheslin Colby and Eben Etzebeth? Do you know what I mean? Like,
you don't. Yeah, it's crazy.
Yeah.
It's like comparing a golfer and a tennis player,
It's not far off, yeah. Listen, thank you so much. Appreciate it, Eddie. Might talk to you the next week or so.